I'm Jax Devora, your friendly neighborhood fantasy writer, and you have stumbled across my little Saturday morning writing stream. How it works is pretty simple. Up in the corner, you'll see a little, or actually, let's start off with the chat. If you're on Blue Sky, consider just clicking that little link. That'll take you right to our chat, where you can say basically whatever you like, so long as it doesn't weird out the other chatters and so long as it doesn't violate YouTube TOS. We'll begin the first word sprint a little bit earlier than usual. I will let you know why. But in the meantime, if you are shy, totally understandable. Let me adjust some sound volumes here. It is very early for me. But if you're shy, no problem. There is an icebreaker, which is a writing question of some sort, geared towards getting you in the mood to write and socialize and so forth. Today's icebreaker is the most exotic place you've ever written. So, for example, did you go out to a writing retreat? Did you write when you went on vacation to a faraway place? That kind of thing. The most exotic place that I've ever written, I decided a couple years ago when I was still working on the novel before TNS, I was going to go and rent this basically a studio apartment that was built into the carriage house of a bed and breakfast in the mountains of New Hampshire. And it was very peaceful, although every night I had to basically sleep with the lights on and the air conditioner going because there was somehow the mosquitoes the size of my palm kept on sneaking in. But other than that, it was like super nice. I had a little kitchenette. It was remote, so I wasn't bothered. There was like a cute little town nearby where I could go and take a walk and write in the little local library or out in the park or in the one coffee shop that was there. It was very peaceful out there. But anyway, let me continue onwards with the spiel. But Hope says, Hope has come in, and Hope says, okay, I guess I should write. Absolutely. You're just in time for me to talk a little bit about how the word sprints go. And like I said, the word sprints might start a little bit earlier than usual, just because I have adulting to do immediately after the stream. But in the top left-hand corner of your screen, you will see a bunch of timers. How this works, if you've never heard of a word sprint, those are periods of times where you just sit down and you be as productive as possible. Traditionally, that means writing as much as possible, but it can, because I like to take things fast and loose here, you can literally do whatever you want in those 20 minutes, so long as they enrich your lives in some way. So you can write, you can edit, you can plan, you can do art of some kind, you can play video games, chill. I've had people do laundry, eat. It really does not matter so long as you're doing it for 20 minutes straight. Our sprints are 20 minutes long. They can be whatever you want them to be. But for 20 minutes, you be as productive as possible, and then at the end of those 20 minutes, we take a break and we talk about our progress, celebrate our wins, and then you go and take a break for 15 minutes just to give your brain and fingers a little bit of rest. I will ramble during those 15 minutes, or even in this case, today I've got a lot to do today, I admit, so I might even go silent, tell you, hey, go take a break, I'll be back in 15. Uh, Whatever works. But at the end of the 15 minutes, we'll start in on the next sprint, and we do that a total of 3 times. Sometimes for T-Rights we do go a little bit longer, but I will tell you right now, we are stopping at the end of the third, and I will give my usual closing spiel of telling you when the next one is. But today, I am, like I said, doing adulting things. I have an appointment at noon, so I have to be out of this apartment by 11:30. So usually these sprints, they last a full. I can't math right now. It's still kind of like I'm still knocking off the sleep. I woke up an hour ago and just sort of leapt up and started getting ready for this stream, but I'm still here. I'm still making it. So instead of the usual 9 a.m. start time, I usually like to let this beginning spiel play out over 30 minutes and just sort of stall for time while people trickle in. But it might start in, I'd say, less than 10 minutes. 8:45 is a nice round number for all that. But yes, it's basically I am going to the DMV. It's time. So I moved into this apartment a couple years ago, and my license still has the old address on it. So I'm finally getting everything updated. It feels good though, because like it's the week where I just start, or it's the month where I start getting rid of all of the negative energy from the ex, which is a long story. But that's the next step, and feels great. But it is the DMV, so I am a little bit nervous. Obviously, I haven't been for quite some time, and no DMV is rated high in terms of efficiency and whatnot. So I'm going there. It's going to be like jury duty, where I sit there and I wait and I wait. But hopefully, I'm in and out. I have an appointment and everything, but so hopefully, I'm in and out within couple of hours, but who even knows? And I have everything packed and ready to go. That's how nervous I am. But anyway, back to the chat. Hope says, most exotic place I have ever ridden, Charlotte, North Carolina airport on a layover. I feel like Charlotte, North Carolina is such a hub for layovers. Everybody has had a layover there, so that is an excellent choice to sit down and write. Specifically in one of the rocking chairs. Oh, I was about to ask about those because those are so much fun. Not that I'm hoping that people get laid over in Charlotte. Like, I don't know what it is about that airport, but it's like a black hole of layovers. And also kind of like delays. I have definitely spent an hour or more in the Charlotte airport more than once. But if you do, they do have these delightful rocking chairs. You basically sit in them and watch the tarmac and chill out. But that is an excellent place to write, absolutely. She also says, I have been on so many layovers there, see? And have another one next week, and it was always a goal to sit in one. Actually had one amazing experience at the DMV. Ah, you're lucky. Especially, I don't know. I've been to the New York one, or one in New York once. I say that as if I'm not going to another one, but I when I first moved to Connecticut, before that I was living in Stamford, Connecticut. Or sorry, Jesus Christ. All right, so before I moved to Queens to live with my now ex, I lived in Stamford, Connecticut, and I had to do an outstate transfer, of course. So he took me to the DMV in Jamaica. And I was there, even though I had an appointment, I was there for no joke, 2 solid hours. The actual appointment was like 10 minutes, but it was, fun. Absolutely fun. But I am kind of curious about the one amazing experience at the DMV. In the meantime, I definitely plan on bringing my phone, obviously, and I'm going to spend that entire time basically reading Fave Lion Friday posts. That is not why I spent, or I did not respond to them. The actual reason was I was just so tired yesterday. I've been very tired this past couple of days. Hope says it was in California. License renewal. Okay. I guess they're just built different in California? Because, man, the one in... I mean, it wasn't bad in Jamaica. In Jamaica, Queens. But... it was very long. NYDMV is hit or miss, right? I mean, I'm sure the ones in Manhattan are super fast, but the ones in the boroughs, from what I understand, tend to be a little bit more iffy. The one in Queens, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't terrible. I've had worse. But Hope says when I moved here and had to transfer my car registration and add my spouse, the lady was really nice though. That I will say, everything in New York was super efficient. I say that even though I mentioned a 2-hour wait. That's just because it was fucking crowded. Hot, crowded, you sat in a crowded waiting room for ages upon ages, listening to other people not being able to read, and so on and so forth. But, absolutely, once I got there, like I said, it was only 10 minutes, they were to the point, all business. I was like, thank you for being super easy to deal with. Hope says, oh, also, they were so nice about my photo. They were like, wow, girl, you look good. That is awesome. Hope says, Westchester DMV is chill. Ah, okay. Yeah, everything up in Westchester is pretty awesome, in general. I've had to deal with government stuff there, like getting passport renewals. Not at the DMV, obviously, but like, just at other government agencies, and they run things very well up there. I do have to say that. Sherry has joined us. Sherry says good morning. I say good morning back. Like I said, we might be starting a little bit earlier than usual just because of DMV shenanigans, and in fact it is 8:44, so I'm going to keep good on that promise and say if you haven't already gotten to your documents and whatnot, get to that, whip that out, put it in front of you. Feel free to talk about what you're working on in the chat. Even though we're going to be sprinting and I'll be as brief as possible, I will still read what you're talking about and respond to it. But in the meantime, 8:45, so usual very short warm-up in the sense that we want to shake out our wrists, wiggle our fingers, maybe crack those knuckles, sit up tall in your chair, back against the back, do not slouch, and breathe in deep through your nose. And then let it out. We're looking for that calm, creative space. One more time. And out. 20 minutes are on that clock. Get ready. Get set. Good luck. And here we go. Alright, that was our first sprint. How did we do? I did 530 words even, and which is not bad for a start. We are basically preparing. I went into this chapter not 100% knowing what I wanted to do with it, so it is delightful that 530 words happened anyway. I will talk about them in just a moment, but back to the chat. Sherry says, I joined the book bazaar and I've been drowning in setting up my first crowdfunding campaign for my dragon book. Exciting, but time consuming. I am wishing you the best of luck with that campaign, and I will keep an eye out for it. That is exciting. I've seen the book bazaar. I've been kind of curious about it. I have seen success stories. I mean, I'm pretty sure Boom Goes the Bride had been crowdfunded. It was crowdfunded via something. I'm pretty sure it was the book bazaar, but in any case, I was watching that campaign and it took off like a rocket. So it seems like a really good place if you're thinking about doing indie publishing, and I might consider it. But for sure, I'm wishing you the best of luck on your dragon book. Comic Man came back. Hello, Comic Man. Comic Man says, morning guys, I'm back. Super exciting. Comic Man had joined us for the very first time on our last Night Rights. And he comes just in time because we just got done with the first sprint. We have 2 more to go. So feel free to pull up a chair and hopefully you're diving back into writing. Definitely let us know what you're working on today. Hope says 500. And I say, yeah, for whenever I do sprints, it tends to be a little bit hit or miss. Night Rights ones, when I'm a little bit more tired, I tend to start off at like maybe 200, 300. But for some reason, I'm very productive on T-Rights. So I definitely end up going for a bit. Also, I can't guarantee that most of these are good. I would be delighted to share this with you eventually. Once I get into draft 2, because I mentioned on Blue Sky that I'm going to be rewriting the first several chapters. And even then, this little piece includes stuff that would only make sense after the rewrites happen. But eventually, where was I going with that? Anyway, yeah, I cannot guarantee that these are good words, that I will keep these words. They are fun words, though. I will talk about them in just a moment. Hope says, I did it like 130, but I googled some side stuff for the characters. See, that's productivity, though. So, and I know that research can be a little bit of a rabbit hole, and it's necessary to do. So, I'm sure that that's definitely what takes up the most time in these sprints. Have definitely had sprints where I wasn't able to do all that much because I was like, sorry guys, I was Googling stuff. So definitely don't beat yourself up. 100% you would totally beat my score if you weren't down a research rabbit hole. But I am curious what specifically you were researching. I admit, between a couple of paragraphs, I drifted over to Blue Sky just to give my brain a little bit of a break so I could figure out the next word. And I did see that you're working on a hockey short story. Hopefully, maybe. Hope says fun is the whole point. Absolutely. So yeah, I will talk a little bit about this. Basically, one of the things that I need to build up more is the reason why Honeysuckle was the one to leave this swarm and go find help. I mentioned this in previous streams and a little bit on Blue Sky, but basically Honeysuckle was going to be in training to become a scout, little scout bee who goes ahead of the swarm and takes or tries to find the best path forward. In fact, Peony, her love interest, who I also need to develop more, was going to be her mentor. Peony was the best scout they had in the swarm before everybody landed in San Valentino, and they all got captured by a mining tycoon and forced into the mines. But the reason why, so basically, Honeysuckle isn't trained as a scout yet. When we first meet her, she can barely speak anything but Zizun, which means signing and so forth. And she knows how to navigate, but she's not necessarily good at it. She doesn't have a lot of experience, so it's sort of like, why is she sent out? And the reason is a couple-fold. Number one, she volunteers to do it. It's her plan, but unlike in The Bug's Life, the rest of the swarm is like, we fully support you. We think that this is a great idea. We will help you prepare in any way, but we are too afraid to do this plan ourselves. So we wish you the best of luck. We love you. We know you will do well. God, we hope you're not going to die out there. So that's the first reason. The second reason is, I know I mentioned that Honeysuckle was chosen by her swarm, but that's going to be rewritten to give her a little bit more agency. But the second reason is hinted at throughout the book, so this is technically a spoiler, but every Zizun has a different element of magic. So there are 12 elements in this story's world in general. We've seen a lot of talk about like heart magic, blood magic, earth magic, the classical elements of magic, and so on and so forth in other books and whatnot. But this is an element that I have been super excited to talk about. And one other important thing to keep in mind is that Zizun have very weak magic unless they combine strength. So Honeysuckle has always kind of considered her magic to be not very useful except in very circumstantial ways. But her element is time. She can move time and she can see the future. When she's on her own, her limitations are she can move she can manipulate time so that she can rewind it or fast forward it 1 second, which is not very useful, I know. But she also has the ability to see an hour into the future, which she doesn't do often and is completely at will. So it's not like she has visions or anything like that. Her magic is so weak it doesn't even trigger involuntarily. But if she puts an effort, she can force herself to see what's going to happen 1 hour into the future. Supposedly 1 hour into the past, she hasn't bothered even trying with that. But like I said, she has never really considered her magic to be particularly useful. The rest of the swarm, meanwhile, is like, this is dangerous magic. Nobody is allowed to know that she has it. Nobody else in the swarm has this magic except for maybe Zizun that have existed beforehand. I also apologize if you can hear that siren. I live down the road from a firehouse, so there's that. But so they decide to let her go, partly because they believe that her magic will keep her protected, but also so that Doc McQueen, the villain, doesn't get his hands on her. Because they know that if he knows, she can manipulate time, and that Zizun can be insanely powerful in a swarm if they combine their magic. and boost the power of one individual, then who knows what will happen. Maybe he might mind control the entire swarm and force her to use her magic, for example. But this chapter is the chapter where she reveals this to the reader, because they're all they've all basically been told, hey, you're going to go and fight Doc McQueen as an army, and they're like, but we're bees. We can't do that. We don't know how to fight, and also we're very weak. Ignoring the fact that they traveled west without any issue. Basically, it's like, oh yeah, we can definitely take down one monster, or we can protect ourselves from one tiny little swarm of humans, but we can't protect ourselves from an entire army and city full of them. That's why we haven't done anything. Also, what will happen with our queen? Um, but basically, she's standing in front of them and she's going, yeah, I saw the future. You're going to kick ass. Don't worry about it. And they're going to listen to her because she's their little oracle, and it's cute. But anyway, back to the chat. That is spoilerific and exactly what's going on and why this has been fun. Comic Man says, the most exotic place I've ever came up with is an ecosystem that evolved on an abandoned human space station. I have to admit, that is not what I admit I didn't realize that the question could be interpreted that way, but that is awesome too, and I'd really want to pose that question to everybody else. What is the most exotic place you've ever cooked up? But that having been said, I love the idea of an entire ecosystem that just evolves in isolation. I really want to know, like, who are the characters in that setting, and what it's like there. Sherry says, I had 221 words. Excellent start, for sure. Hope says, I was researching stuff for a character's occupation for the hockey short story. Excellent. So is the character in question a hockey player? Sherry says, nice. Comic Man says, I love researching stuff. The volcano story I'm working on is set all over the West, so I love going around Google Earth and Wikipedia, lol. Google Earth is so addictive, for sure. But also, ooh, volcano story. And the West. So now I'm very curious, because there is one super volcano out there that is very interesting. If we're talking about, like, Western United States. If we're talking about different West, do tell. Hope says it's an anthology themed around Valentine's Day, and the proceeds go to charity, organized by author Ken Findlay. Ooh. I'm delighted by charity anthologies, and I wish you the best of luck for it, for sure. I had not heard about this, but I definitely need to go check it out so I can figure out when it goes on sale and help support. Definitely. Sherry says, I've been using Google Earth too. It is such a good resource for sure. It is also a rabbit hole in itself. Hope says, I love characters with abilities, but they are not super useful. Love the 1 second thing, right? Like, I love time manipulation in general. Like, if I had a superpower, that would definitely be it. But you have to be really creative if you can only manipulate 1 second of time. It can potentially be hella useful, but it's like, what can you do in 1 second to change your fate? That kind of thing. Hope says, yes, but this character I was researching today is a side character, a nurse. Ah, gotcha. And Hope says, January, Valentine's Day. It is Valentine's Day themed. Gotcha. Oh, okay, so it's releasing. I'm dumb. It's releasing January ahead of Valentine's Day. That makes so much more sense. But I am delighted, and I wholeheartedly wish you the best of luck with that. Also, 30-second warning until our next sprint. I might spend the first part of it, like, actually getting some breakfast, but still, there will be words. Comic Man says, the story I'm working on is where 3 childhood friends who went down completely different life paths get caught together in Yellowstone. Oh, right, you mentioned this at the very end of the last sprint, and absolutely I am delighted by this, especially since that is a massive disaster, and I'm excited. Anyway, 20 more minutes are on the clock. Best of luck. I will go quiet, especially since I'm making breakfast. BRB. that is our next sprint. How did we do? Let's see, where did I start? Here we go. 323 words, which is not that bad considering part of that was spent eating and breakfasting and whatnot. But in any case, Comic Man says they all grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but one became a successful entrepreneur, and the other becomes an army general, and the third makes art for social media. I am delighted by how different these characters are and how they're essentially stuck together. The entrepreneur and army general sound like they'd be hilarious bouncing off of each other by themselves. Hope says another 120 words, lol. But my husband woke up and provided me breakfast. That is excellent and also understandable in that case. Hope says, what's for breakfast? Yogurt parfait here. That sounds excellent. I'm always delayed by yogurt parfaits. This morning it's been a little bit rough on the stomach. For some reason, this entire week, I have been craving peanut butter and jelly and blueberry preserve wraps every single day, and today was definitely no exception. Because I even had to discard my coffee. That's how I don't even know why I've been kind of like feeling blah in terms of stomach stuff. I did not eat the Taco Bell lettuce, so let me just open with that. But I will say that I just kind of, some days it's like waking up my stomach is another task and a half. It's like a small 3-year-old child. So I just went for something easy. Sherry says, I had 115. Also excellent work. Do tell what you're working on, by the way. Hope says, going back to Sherry, is it still Dragon Book stuff or something new? Hope says, yum. Sherry says, that sounds yum. It really is. I tend to be like a little bit bougie, but I do get like the store brand stuff as well. So I got, Bon Marie, the preserve company that does like $5 to $7 jars of preserves depending on where you get it. I did that, but store brand, so it was like $4. But it's so much better for you, I feel like. Like, it's still filled with, absolutely chock full of sugar, but you actually get the fruit in it, and that's my favorite part. Especially whenever we're talking, like, blueberry or strawberry. It's so delicious. And also, just like regular old Skippy, I've been on a smooth peanut butter kick. I tend to switch off between crunchy and smooth. It just so happens that I've been buying a lot of smooth for some reason. Just for the summer, I think. Just because, like, for me, whenever I eat nuts, I start overheating. It's the weirdest thing. So, less crunchy nuts, more smooth paste, in other words. Comic Man says, I did 159 words, but I was struggling to come up with the start of the chapter since it's the introduction of the character and it's mostly dialogue. Starts of a chapter are the hardest part. Like, you've just completed one self-contained episode and it's like, ah, crap. I could consult the outline, but what if the outline's not great? Or what if I'd already gone way off script, that kind of thing. So I can totally understand. Hopefully, now that you've gotten off the ground, it'll be a little bit easier. Sherry says, I'm on book 3 of the Dragon Book. I'm aiming to finish the 4 volumes by the end of the year. That is impressive. Like, impressive progress. Because you're still on book 3. We are over halfway through the year. And there's a 4th volume that you have to tackle. So I applaud your productivity. I'm lucky to be able to finish a book in 2 months, or a draft in 2 months. We are speeding along with Beastlinkers, weirdly, but still. Hope says yes. The Stoneground Farms brand has a new whole shelf in my local store, and their stuff is good. Jams and dressings and salsas and that sort of thing. Ooh. I wonder if that does sound good. Let me see if mine carries that. I have their app, and I basically live on this app. Stoneground Farms. Yeah, every other week I put in a grocery order via the app, so I love this thing. Unfortunately, they don't have it. Sad face. But, oh, ShopRite. That's why. I think ours is just open nature. But, I do like ShopRite as well. Like, their app is also excellent, and their stuff has, I have been to some really shitty ShopRites, but most of the ShopRites I've been to are top-notch, not gonna lie. Although I will say this, when I lived in Connecticut, Stop and Shop was where it was at. Like, that was like, ShopRite is where you went to get your basic, or if you were commoner, essentially. Stop and Shop was where you went if you were slightly more, if you were basically bougie. I do miss Connecticut in a lot of ways, including the variety of stuff. It was like suburbs, but still. Comic Man says each chapter rotates between the perspective of the 3 characters, so it's especially hard when you have to build off. Sorry. Each chapter rotates between the perspective of the 3 characters, so it's especially hard when you have to build off of the previous character's chapter from a different perspective. Ooh. I'm sure that's going to get even more fun whenever they come together post-eruption, or mid-eruption. We'll skip to Comic Man's next bit. Currently, they're all in different places physically and mentally, and it will be hard to find out how they all come together by the time the volcano begins to do stuff. It should be interesting to see what you come up with, because those are extremely different backgrounds, and I'm sure that some of them are actually more entertaining than others. Like, I really want to know what the fuck the artist dude is doing there, but he must be able to delight. Sherry says, I don't usually write this fast, but I'm on a mission. Heck yeah. I am fully rooting for you to complete this mission, for sure. And Hope says, our town has ShopRite and Stop and Shop, but the Stop and Shop vibes are very weird. Suburbs. I kind of know what you mean. Like, when I say Stop and Shop is bougie, it can be very bougie. But now I'm also kind of curious, because in Westchester, like, vibes are weird could mean it's weirdly bougie and you have this air that you shouldn't be there because you're a filthy commoner. Or it could mean you might just be stopped by people. I actually will tell you the story of... So I used to work in White Plains. So... Come to think of it, there are multiple stories I could tell you about White Plains, but I was about to tell you, though, about the one time I went to their Stop and Shop, or sorry, not Stop and Shop, their Stop and Shop I've never actually been to. Their shop I would go to on my lunch breaks, if just to pick up like stuff to take home for dinner and whatnot. But like, it was inside this mini. I say it's a not like a strip mall or anything like that, but it was a smaller mall than the other two malls that were in the area, and it was between those two malls. So one of the malls, it wound up getting shut down, but it was right by the train station and bus stop, so you had all kinds of people there. It wasn't exactly clean, and it wasn't exactly safe. Um, I say that objectively. I have definitely witnessed fights in there. But the other mall was for high-end stores. They had a fucking Neiman Marcus in that mall. But it's the mall in between called City Place is like a combination of the two. So if you went down into the basement, you got to the Target, which was like the not the worst Target I have ever been to. This one in Stamford, Connecticut was definitely worse. But it was weird vibes in that Target, in the basement Target. But on the top floor, you had the ShopRite, which was always weirdly crowded. A lot of the stuff was hit or miss, and there were times when I would be followed around by people there. I don't know why. It was the weirdest thing. There would be a security guard posted outside, and I had at one point had to go over there and be like, hey, yeah, this dude is following me. So that was fun. But yeah, the vibes are just in general. White Plains is so weird because like you have a mix of like one part of it feels a lot like the city. It's very down to earth. It's very low key, and there are all kinds of people, and there are parts where it's sort of like it's rougher than others, and sometimes they bring that roughness to places, and then there are parts where it's sort of like you feel like you're part of the community. And then there's the bougie part of White Plains where it's very white and very rich, and they would shop at Bloomingdale's and Neiman Marcus. But it's interesting there. Let's just say. Anyway, and basically the malls exemplified that. You had the Westchester and the Galleria. The Galleria was for the the not bougie crowd, and the Westchester was for the bougie crowd. I don't know what White Plains is like now that, especially now that the Galleria is gone and the city was, at least when I left that job, slowly getting gentrified. But hey, let's see. Cherry says it sounds really interesting. Hope says, so it's like the store is so understaffed and there's the robot wandering around. My husband won $2 on a scratcher, and there was no employee who was able to help us redeem it. Like, none were old enough or something? They told us to come back, LOL. My husband and I almost moved to White Plains when we first moved here. White Plains has, like, 3.5 miles. Yes, exactly. I get the feeling that the city place is the 0.5. It's hilarious. That is, like, the most random little bit. By the way, 15 seconds, but I will read the rest of the chat, speed through it very quickly. I do miss White Plains. Comic Man, but also regarding that grocery, that is super weird. I can definitely see that way out in the suburbs too, like especially post COVID. Westchester is quite an interesting county. Comic Man says the artist I think will be doing some sort of charity stream there. I think that him basically disappearing midstream allows me to have a scene where he meets a fan who opens his eyes. Ooh. Hope says we ate there at the food court when we were apartment hunting and had time to kill. Weird vibes. The Galleria, yes. Right? Like, it was right by the bus stop that I'd take to go home back to Stanford, so it was a place where I'd go frequently, but when it was darker outside, uh, like during the winter, I would actually not really go in there, um, just because the vibes were so off. Like it would always be empty except for the food court, and there would always be crowds of like really rowdy teenagers in the food courts, and that's where I'd see the fights happening. It was like the weirdest vibes. It didn't have it. It wasn't like dead. There were every single shop, if I recall correctly, was actually occupied, but like nobody shopped there, so it was super weird. Um, and the Macy's was probably the dirtiest that I'd ever been in. Not gonna lie. Also, across the street, worst Starbucks that I've ever been to. Not gonna lie. Anyway, now it will be housing. That's actually really cool that they're demoing it and putting up housing instead. The weirdest Target I have been to is Portchester. It's 2 levels and funky. I didn't even realize that Portchester had a Target, not gonna lie, but I am kind of curious about the funkiness. Comic Man says, I'm from like the edge of the suburbs, so those urban Targets that are multiple levels and on top of parking garages are so weird to me, lol. I have to say, yeah, I've never been to a multi-level Target that was actually not weird. Stanford also has one, and that literally is the worst Target that I've ever been to. Like, it would constantly have like the worst products. Like, I used to, when I first moved to Stanford, I would go food shopping there. And I stopped after I kept on buying like expired food or food that was open, just like opened and then put back on the shelf. And it's like, what are you guys even doing? Uh, and then it was made even worse whenever I started seeing milk and stuff just sitting out on shelves. But it was dirty. Uh, there would be like abandoned things. Like I once went to their shoe department and found like an abandoned pair of dirty ass shoes. Somebody like had stolen shoes. So basically, and it was always super expensive, despite the fact that it was the weirdest fucking place to go for shopping. So I rarely went there afterwards, but yeah. Anyway, Comic Man also says, "Oh, I've been to White Plains. I have some friends from Connecticut who picked me up from their airport. I keep forgetting that Westchester also has an airport, but yes, it is. White Plains is a great city, to be honest with you. Like, it's not too far from New York, so if you really wanted city, you had that. But also, like, it had its own ecosystem, and it was chill to hang out in, just like not certain places like the Galleria. Hope says the White Plains Airport is GOAT. I have always wanted to fly out of there or into there. Like, it's a legit airport, but nothing I've ever been on has gone into or out of there. So I envy you guys. Anyway, it is 5 minutes into the next and last sprint, so I will shut up and just continue onwards. Good luck, everybody. that was the last sprint. How did we do? Let's see. There we go. 406 words for a grand total of 1259. Also, this is the end of one chapter as well, so when I get back from DMV shenanigans, I will probably dive into the next one. Let me just record so far. To the dashboard, enter progress. It's not so bad. So basically that was an entire chapter of preparing for the preparation for the final battle. Like I said, this book is going by very quickly. To give you an idea, we're not even on 30,000 words. We are at 27,863 so far, I do believe. Which is not bad considering the fact that we're going for a nano goal. So essentially, or sorry, it's 29,122. Now it's updated. Which again is not that bad. We will definitely hit that goal in less than a month. Basically, especially if I do a little bit of extra writing once I come back home, which most likely because it's supposed to be really terrible weather otherwise. I'm not really going anywhere after this. But it's still like, that's 30,000 words and we're almost to the final battle. So I am a little bit worried that it's a little bit too short. To give you an idea, at 30,000 words of the Nameless Song, that's whenever Mick turns into a dragon. So like, I'm coming off of that pacing to 30,000 words. Oops, we're almost done with the book. But hopefully I can draw it out a little bit more, especially once I get to draft 2. Because I do want this to be an actual novel, not just like a novella, a little blip. But it's also YA, so it's supposed to be a little bit on the shorter end. But still. Anyway. Let's see. Comic Man says, for real, regarding Westchester Airport, Comic Man says, for real, it's small enough that you can't really get lost anywhere. I had layovers in both Newark and JFK, and those can be a little stressful. Absolutely. I normally fly out of JFK. I've flown out of Newark once, and Newark, I have to say, is not as bad as people say. It gets bad rap for it being, you know, for being like a complete cesspit. But I would argue that LaGuardia is the worst of the 3 New York airports. But then again, like, that's not a hot take if you among New Yorkers, from what I've understood. But like, JFK is depending on the terminal that you get, is pretty straightforward. It's just huge as shit, and like, depending on the terminal, like, there are terminals that are shaped like forks, and those forks are like fucking mile long. So you will be walking forever to get to a gate. Newark is a little bit more compact. It is a little bit of a confusing layout, but it's also kind of like the nicer of the 3 airports, in my opinion, because it's smaller and it's more compact. And also it's just cleaner and also has bars everywhere. But anyway, LaGuardia, meanwhile, is a rat's nest. It's always crowded, dirty, super long and difficult to find your gate in. I do not like LaGuardia. Hope says 6 gates, tiny. That's delightful, actually. I still do want to see Westchester at least once. I can't believe I've never even been there before. Sherry says congrats. Hope says 145 wharfs. I needed to find a Xenoper. Totally cool. Sherry says, I wrote 64. That is still 64 more than you had beforehand, so hell yeah. Sherry says, I was doing lots of other things. Understandable in that case. Comics Man said, I did 164 words. I'm currently introducing the sergeant guy right now, and he's basically yelling at his division for flunking an audit, and he's taking them to Yellowstone to correct them. Ooh! So he sounds like he's gonna be fun with the other two. Hope says Newark is fresh and shiny and clean, right? Hope says LaGuardia is great. Well, the new terminal. Okay, so I will give you that. I have not been to the new terminal. Somehow I always end up in like the dingy ass old terminal that's like constantly, even if it's not actually the terminal that's being worked on, it's constantly under construction or there's constantly something blocked off in there. It's fun. Comic Man says the story started out with the entrepreneur, and he's basically alone at his house at 4 in the morning, so it's a good change of pacing between the two chapters. Ooh. Like, I like how you're easing people into it with a nice, calm chapter, and then Sergeant yelling at subordinates, so that's fantastic. It already sounds like a lot of fun. That having been said, also, I should probably talk about schedules and whatnot, because this is going to be, like I said, the last sprint. I have to start getting ready. I am basically ready. I just have to put on socks and brush my teeth and stuff like that, and make sure that I have everything, because I'm hoping to do this in one shot. But anyway, let me think. Calendar. So, tomorrow is going to be a nice day, but probably I'm not going to be streaming, as tempting as that might be, because I want to enjoy it and relax and do other things. So probably there will be no stream. Monday and Tuesday I don't usually stream because those tend to be very crazy days for me. Wednesday is our usual night raid stream, so if you're more of a night raider, haha, join us at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. That's when our next guaranteed stream will be. Oh, Comic Man says, I gotta get ready for the day, so I can't do the last sprint, so good luck to y'all. Totally cool. We are actually wrapping up the stream as it is, because we're only doing 3 streams today. We've done, that last one was our 3rd. So, if you can, I hope to see you again sometime soon. Like I said, Wednesday will be our next guaranteed stream. You can catch us at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If not, we'll be doing this again on Saturday morning, Saturday the 25th. That's 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and it'll be our usual. So those are our 2 guaranteed sprint days, stream days, the 22nd and the 25th. Guys, can you believe that we're almost to the end of July? Anyway, will there be surprise streams? Probably not on Thursday, that's a D&D night for me. Maybe on the 24th, just because, why not? We're going to be doing something Wednesday and Thursday, so it's possible. If you want to catch any surprise streams, as always, follow me on Blue Sky at jackstavora.bsky.social. I will usually announce surprise streams at least half an hour before they happen, usually more than an hour before they happen. So keep an eye there. I do not use the community tab on YouTube, so you will never see me actually announce streams there. If you hit the bell, then you will only be notified when a stream starts. So it's better off that you follow me on Blue Sky. So to wrap up, 22nd guaranteed stream 8:30 p.m. 25th guaranteed stream 8:30 a.m. Most likely day to have a surprise stream will be Friday the 24th, but that's a maybe. That having been said, I am wrapping this up now because I need to go and get ready myself. But thank you all for coming. This was a very enjoyable, very productive stream. Regardless of what you're doing today, I hope it's a lovely day for all of you. I hope you have fun. I hope you have an excellent Saturday. Remember, stay hydrated, know that you're loved, take care of yourselves, and I will see you on the next stream again, Wednesday the 22nd. Hope says thank you, have a good day, and have a good day to all of you. Bye! And same to you, Sherry. Thank you and see you next week.